Hi everyone, this is a video where the one I'll be getting into the guides of art, the ones I like to use when it comes to my designs and just art in general. And to begin, I'd just like to mention that, you know, there are people out there who have the innate ability to draw well, or at least they'll be able to see an image and understand what is off about it and have a good sense of what to do when it comes to, you know, enhancing the look of it. And I never felt I was like this. I did feel like I had some ability to draw well, but when it came down to looking at an image and understand what made it appealing, this took time for me to develop. And this is one thing that the guides did kind of help me with. So before I get into the guides, I just wrote down a few or several reasons why understanding the guides could benefit you, especially if you're trying to get in the field of concept art or some sort of art entertainment field. So yeah, let's begin. So number one is appeal. And appeal, and especially in commercial art, appeal is everything. And there are many different forms, or appeal can come in many different ways. I love the horror genre, and there's definitely appeal in it, although it doesn't sound initially that there should be appeal in horror, but there's definitely appeal there as well. So in my field especially, I use it in horror. The way I use it in horror is in a way where it could potentially appeal a mainstream audience. So I definitely use these guides for that purpose. So keep that in mind. Never forget that when you're working for a entertainment field, appeal is everything. Number two is understanding and creating art languages. So if you're able to understand and create an art language, the guides will definitely help you along the way in creating something that is appealing again. And by learning and understanding how to create, you'll be able to break down an image and be able to duplicate it in a sense with whatever iterations you'd like. But that's definitely important, especially if you're trying to create worlds and characters and all sorts of things, props, within a world, that you'll have a cohesive look that will be very appealing. So that's number two. Number three is determining what's wrong with an image. So by developing this understanding of creating and breaking down art language, you'll right away develop I mean, it takes years, but along the way, you'll be able to determine what's off about an image and what could enhance it. Because by understanding and creating, you practically have the answers to those things. And that's, finding the problem, sometimes it's not an easy thing to do. Sometimes you'll look at an image and just try to figure out what can I do to make this look better, and it could take some time. And for professionals, if you've been doing this for a long time, we've developed those skills where sometimes it's instantaneously. You'll be able to see an image and right away know what's off about it. And I remember from starting out, this is something that kind of took me a while to kind of understand. It would take me hours and hours to try to fix an image, and without success, and I could not determine what was wrong with it. But later I did develop these skills, and these guides definitely helped me in that regard. But that being said, this goes beyond anatomy, perspective, rendering, shading, etc. This goes beyond all that stuff. These are the underlying factors of an image where the problems are not as apparent as something as bad anatomy or bad rendering. Those things are great too, but this is just like the overall image. And when you're trying to create something that's appealing to an audience or a fan base, getting the whole image right at a first glance is key to doing that. So these are the reasons why understanding the guides could benefit you, and then I'll move on to the guides. Okay, so here we go. The first guide, the golden ratio. And if you guys have taken general art courses or are in the industry, there is a high chance that you've come across this. It's almost impossible that you haven't, but in case you haven't, and you kind of ask yourself, what is this spirally thing and how does it relate to art? Well, this spiral comes from the Fibonacci sequence, who was a famous mathematician in the 1200s, but it's also seen in nature. And us as humans, we tend to mimic lots of things in nature, including mimicking them and applying them to our designs or architecture or cars or endless things. But what I really think about the spiral, in my opinion, it's one of the coolest things in art. It's to me, it's a blueprint of what makes something appealing. And then and all the other guides after this, to me, are just a variation of this one. But to me, it's an awesome spiral. And I can also go deeper into the spiritual side of this. I would love to make a video about just the spiritual side of this spiral, which is very intriguing to me. So how does it apply to art? You might ask. And well, if I can kind of break it down simply, into simple ways, you might understand. As you see, the ratio is 1.6. So how does this apply to art? Well, to simplify it, do you see how it's broken up into these squares from large, medium, trailing down to the small ones? What this gives you is it's a guide to ideal proportions, and also giving you a sense of direction to the eyes, which is very crucial in the field of concept art. So the ratio is 1.6. And if you see this big piece right here, that's taking up 60% of this whole square right here. And then it trails down to, secondary 30, and then which is called right here accent, is 10%, which that's something to note. So it's 60, 30, 10. Together is 100. So, and right here I'll provide some examples of and here are some examples in nature, and here it is. So like if you take a look at this stem right here, how it goes from large, medium, then it travels down to another medium, and then small. So that kind of creates a sense of direction for the eye to look at, and that's just kind of important to note. And when you look at this kitten or this cat right here, you feel the energy of this cat. You feel the motion and the rhythm, the movement. And when you apply the guide on the golden ratio on it, you can kind of get that directional eye thing. It's a given when you place it on it, but when you take it out, your eye still wants to have that motion to look, start off from the right top down to the bottom, up to his face, where there's more detail there. And you can kind of go along the outside of the body, going all the way to the head, down to close to that point. And here are some other examples that you see. And it's kind of funny, like on the face, there's plenty examples on that face right there, as well as that hurricane. So yeah, these are some examples in nature. Here's an example of man-made examples where the golden ratio is seen. And right here, the Aston Martin vehicle, which is they put it everywhere on this thing, and the car is definitely appealing, without a doubt. And in this one, I wouldn't necessarily say that this airplane is appealing, but maybe there was since this, this is derived from nature as well. Maybe there were reasons why they applied it to this this plane. Maybe it could have been, it might fly better. I don't know, but I'm sure there's a reason. So it might not only be for appeal. It could be for function as well. So same with that Greek building. Maybe when I see it, I just see strength. And it's almost like it's been created with those proportions for that reason, just to display strength. And that's like part of it is there's something appealing about that. And this is probably the best example in this page. And how it's broken up. You see the larger part of the bike than this Ducati, and then it shows down from medium down to small toward the back end. But other than the big geometric shapes, what I really like about this bike is the sense of direction. How in one point everything kind of follows this spiral, or everything kind of connects with itself from one portion of the bike to the other portion of the bike, like this, from one point all the way to here. And then there's almost there's just a flow there of this this bike that you don't really it's the underlying part of it that is not so apparent, but it makes the bike look awesome. And there's other lines right here too that kind of have their own path. So those are the underlying factors that I'm talking about. And once you start seeing these things more, if you draw a lot, you probably well aware of this stuff. But if you're just getting started, or you're struggling a lot, pay closer attention to the things out there in nature, or just cool designs, and that you might find that these things exist. So inherently, it might start to make your drawings, look cooler just from knowing this stuff. You'll have it in the back of your mind. I don't after I do a drawing, or even before I do it, a sketch, I don't really think about this stuff. Like, I've had my years of thinking about this stuff already, so now it's second nature to me. I don't really think about it. But if I do come across a problem, which does happen visually, I do bring all this information consciously and try to reapply it, and more often than not, they help. So here you go, moving on to the golden ratio in art. And as we see right here, I like this one. It's Leonardo da Vinci's Annunciation. And again, it's the way it's broken up. It's from the larger areas down to the smaller areas. Leonardo was very conscious of this, and you can see it in his paintings. Larger down to small. And the Mona Lisa, and this one, I think it's a great example. It's this Vermeer. This, to me, it's a great example. It's very similar to that kind of Ducati, where you kind of see portions of this face, parts of this face. It's very simple too. See how like her turban kind of like from this part, the bottom part kind of trails down, and it kind of matches up with her lower back. Same with the top of her turban, like this. Everything kind of aligns itself. The guide that it's applied here on her, this one, it's like you need more to show. But like I said, I just grabbed these online, and as I'm drawing right here, you can kind of see the rhythms, in this image. And there's other guides that are in existence here, but that you don't see, that I'll go over on the next few slides. But yeah, this is a great example. You get many lines flowing, and and that's what makes this image appealing in a sense. There's other factors too, like the color, and the emotion on her face. That definitely is included as well. But those are different. We are talking about the underlying factors, so that's a bit different. So let's move on. Okay, so next, the rule of thirds. So this guide is great, for composition. I don't follow it exactly all the time, but I do keep it in mind. So, the general idea of this is like those blue highlights. It's the percentage of where that one's interesting because that's, according to studies, that's where the eye tends to look at first, and then it kind of trails down to all the other ones. So it starts off from that top left area down to the other ones. So that's kind of interesting thing to note. And here are some examples right here, just to kind of show you interest. So, but for me, this is mainly used in cinematography, but I just to know it and put it in the back of your mind is it's not a bad thing. So yeah, I don't keep it in mind too often, but here and there I'll think about it. Here's the next one. Here's the next one, which is the 70-30 rule, and this one's very popular amongst. I've heard it more amongst like environment artists or character artists, but I don't, which is hilarious. I don't hear it much when it comes to concept, which I think it's kind of funny, and I kind of wonder why sometimes, but I don't really know. I hear it more from environment artists and character artists, which is, I think it's hilarious. But what this is, consider this big rectangle to be an image, design, or shape, where the primary section would be the rest area. So this would be the rest area on these large rectangles. But then as you break it down, you start segmenting it starting from the 70% mark. You end up with 30, and then that 30 you break the 70 portion of it, and as a whole you end up with 10, 20, and then break it up continuously. That it's 7-3. So you don't necessarily have to draw it as a rectangle, but if you do, you end up kind of with the golden ratio. It's like a variation of the golden ratio, like if this guy was up here. But again, you don't have to do that. And I'll show you an example on the next slide. But you can as long as the larger portion is close to 70, and the secondaries, is like 20, and the third lands around 10. You'll be fine. But like I said, they can be spread out. If you're doing, let's say, something that doesn't necessarily have a focal point, it would most likely, all these details would be spread throughout the drawing, where the secondary ones would be larger ones, more apparent, and something like this, I'm just kind of doodling, wouldn't really have a focal point. But for the next on the next slide, I'll show you an example of one that does have a focal point where you can apply it. So we'll do that next. Made this guy just for this portion of the video, and I was just kind of doodling around, but I did start off with a larger shape, and that was my whole intent. Normally I don't work like this. I just draw whatever I want and then try to figure it out in the sketch. But I started off with a large kind of shape for this guy, really trying to push that 70-30 rule, and this being the rest area, and then these being kind of the medium size, medium shapes. This also medium, but then you have small ones right here, but it's all kind of pushing towards this guy right there. So everything pushing towards the focal point right there. And then you do have some small areas of detail right here, little bits, but everything, all the detail, the main details are being pushed up here where the main around the focal point area. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. when you have the 70-30 with the focal point. Yeah, and having rest areas is very helpful, I think, for guiding the eye into a certain directional point or area of interest. So that's why I think the 70-30 rule is great to have. And another great thing about it is, like, you know, they don't necessarily have to apply to the whole composition. If anything, you can apply to anything. You know, if it's color, line, like value, or yeah, anything you can think of, you can definitely apply it. If you want to create some area of interest with the focal point and areas of rest, by using the areas of rest, your eyes kind of forced to kind of go along the areas where there's more detail. So great rule. I should call it a guide. Great guide. And for the next one right here, symmetry, 50-50, that's what I put in here. And the main reason I put it in here, although it's not really talked about, and maybe for obvious reasons, because everyone knows what symmetry is, but I thought it'd be important to put it on here because you need sort of a starting point in terms of, you know, ratios. So let's just say like 50-50s where symmetry is 0, and 70-30 rule is like a little bit more extreme or close to ideal. You can probably get more extreme than that, and you know, you probably get different looks. You know, I imagine something would probably with further ratios would probably end up looking possibly cartoony or maybe really large scale, but you can probably play around that. But I would say 70-30s on the other side and 50-50s on the other side, and in between is something you can kind of play around with as well. But you know, symmetry can also be used as a tool, because if you need something that doesn't look as interesting to make something else stand out, you know, you can definitely use that as a tool. So, you know, anything that's even, that has even sides all throughout, usually tends to look a bit more boring, rather than something that, you know, has a longer side and then medium and then short side. So, but it's definitely, I believe it's a tool and it's in nature, so why not put it in here? And here I'll show you this next. So all of these guides, I just believe that they're variations to the golden ratio, which is number 1. So, but all of them are good to learn, or at least to understand, to further develop, you know, your drawings or illustration or composition or etc. So yeah, these are the guides that I use, and next we'll take a look at the principles and elements of design. Okay, this is the second segment, and what this is you know, these are the principles and elements of design, and we'll start off with the principles. And all of this is you know, relevant to what I do, which is concept, but there's no reason why it shouldn't be relevant to other things. I know different fields have different principles, but for this one, you know, these are the ones I kind of chose that I felt applied to what I do. So, you know, for the principles, we got line, shape, form, color, texture, space, value. And just to go over them really quick, you know, line, we have horizontal, curve, dotted, diagonal, straight, broken, thick or thin. Those are just some examples. When it comes to 2D shapes, you know, geometric, square, circle, triangle, rectangle, all flat. And then organic, you know, all other shapes. So I just kind of drew in some kind of whatever examples. We go to form. We get the 3D dimensional shapes, starting off with the geometric, which are cube, sphere, cone, you can do pyramid. We go to organic, human, animals, trees. Those are just examples. Then going down to color, which, you know, color, what is color? It's like what wavelengths of light, you know, with pigment. We got hue, you know, value of lightness to darkness. intensity and saturation, which is the amount of pigment on a color from warm as well as warm to cool as it relates to tint, tone, and shade. And then we go to texture, the visual of smooth, rough, shiny, matte, glossy, etc. So it's the surface of all that type of stuff. So, and then we go to space, the area and or shape and how it's seen in space, perspective, as well as negative space, positive space. So there you go, some examples using negative and positive. And then we go to value, which is the lightness or darkness of a color. If white added, it creates a tint. If black added, it creates a shade. So that's just really quick to go over the principles of design. And then from here, let's talk about this one, the elements of design. So pattern, contrast, emphasis, balance, proportion, scale, harmony, unity, variety, rhythm, movement. So to start off with the pattern, regular arrangement or repeated pattern of elements, shapes, lines, color, or motifs. Contrast is a juxtaposition of different elements of design, like rough to smooth, dark to light, thick to thin lines, wide, narrow. So anything that contrasts each other, that's kind of an element that you have. But it helps create the difference between visual interests and focal points. We go to emphasis. The way an element stands out from the rest. This could be done by using the elements of design in directional way or using patterns, color as well as contrast to make one element stand out from the rest. So right here, just a quick example how this red skull, I made it slightly larger than the rest, and it's red, so it stands out. So that's the emphasis that I placed on this skull. And then we go to balance. So using elements of design to create symmetry, asymmetry, but overall create a feeling of balanced weight. So you can see the little scale or whatever that thing is, how it's one weight is kind of shifting more towards the other. And I don't know, it's just a symbolic representation of asymmetry, I guess, or just balance. But I'll show you better examples of this. We go down to proportions and scale. So the dynamic use of design elements to create the sense of scale by adjusting such things as shapes relating to each other from big to small to create the desired illusion. So in this one, I do have examples, but right here in this little box, I just put in the human skull because the human skulls are very recognizable, and right away, unless it's like a little person or something, you should know like the scale of these two things. But it's off because the one on the left, it's a lion. It's just a symbolic thing I put in there. But I'll show you more examples. You can use humans for scale, which is commonly done in video games as well as film. But there's also, like, let's just say if you don't have humans, if you have the character or creature by itself, there's things that you can do, like if it's a giant, right? If you make the head smaller, it'll appear like the guy is huge. If you make the limbs longer and then you make the details a lot smaller than what you're used to, you'll create the sense of scale for that character. So those are things you can kind of do. So in the end, it's like an illusion. And then we go to harmony, unity, and variety. So these could have had their own, but I decided to put them together because it just feels like they're slightly different, but they're very complementary to each other. So I felt that they go great together. So let me just kind of read off what I put down. So what it is, it's a harmony and unity are not the same, but they are deeply connected in design. Harmony is the pleasing arrangement of elements that create a consistent feel. Unity is a broader way of making parts work together as a cohesive whole. You often achieve harmony through unity. Too much harmony can lack interest, and unity ensures everything is purposeful and connected. So these things are wonderful to me, and yeah, they kind of complement each other. So I just went ahead and put them in there. So go to the next one, rhythm and movement. So the use of elements of design using grouping, shapes, line, or balance to be organized in a way to create motion and shift direction or weight, to create a visual of movement and or rhythm directing the eye towards a focal point. 5 types of rhythm: regular, random, alternating, flowing, and progressive. So these are the elements of design. So the way I look at them, the elements of design, these are the tools that you're going to play with. So by using the guides that I showed you and these principles and elements, now, and you put them all together, now you'll be able to create formulas. You'll be able to create languages with this, visual languages, and it's up to you. Like, you can go 50-50, go boring, or you can go like more extreme, like 70-30, you know. And then to me, like the ideal is the golden ratio, which is like 60-30-10. All of these together, you can pick from, like I said, you can pick from 50-50, 7-30. So in the end, you know, you find the answer. So in the end, you just try to find the answer which is right for you. But most often than not, you know, in this industry, appeal generally tends to win more often than not. So it is what it is. But if you're trying to do your own art, you have those options. You can make either something more boring, static, or make something more exciting. And I think more exciting is the way you probably might want to go, but that's not to say that the boring stuff doesn't have its place, which it does. Okay, so what I did here, I took the principles and elements of design, and what I did is I applied some of these guides to each one, and I couldn't do it for all of them, but I can show you some examples. But you know, when it came to I started out with the line. So in the line, here's the first example, and at first, you know, I showed you the line types, and I'm sure there's probably more, but here are the line types that I put in where you can kind of play around with. And to all of these, you can apply these guides. You can apply the 50-50, golden ratio, 70-30, and you can play around with them. So I think the more interesting ones are down here, where I start to kind of play with them just a little bit. But these are just to show you kind of the line types, and where I put like curve, curve, curve plus curve, you know, straight plus curve, straight plus straight, curve plus straight. But you can go deeper than this. But for this instance, these are just kind of showing you kind of what you have to play with. Here are the line type examples, which I was talking about, where I actually applied, you know, 50-50, 7-30 in the big, medium, small, which I attribute closer to the golden ratio. So right here, the line curve break, where I kind of put big. It starts off with big, and then you know, medium, small. That's the line how I applied just big, medium, small. So it's not really the golden ratio. Right here is just big, medium, small. And right here I applied the 70-30, and then right here 50-50. So it's kind of symmetrical line, curved line. And then right here, like, this is what happened when I applied these guides to one, and I also introduced angles. So right here you see the line, like if it was stretched out, but at the 30 percentage point, that's when I kind of broke the angle, and then I not only broke it, but I made it like 30 degrees from this, like if it was laying down, I made it 30 degrees, and then I created a medium shape, or a medium line to a small line. So that's kind of how I'm applying these right here. And then at the bottom, this bottom one right here, we got, what is it? So again, if you were to lay this down flat, I kind of divided it at the 70, and This one has a different take. I actually use symmetry for the angle right here. So that's kind of like the angle that I get. So if you kind of compare it, the top and bottom one, it's kind of interesting to see. But I use this one's like I mixed the 70-30 with symmetry. And this one, the bottom one, it's all symmetry. So, and I'm other than like the big line shape, and you know, just the medium sized one. Let's go down here to curve. So when it came to curve, I threw in rhythm in here. So I'm trying to create rhythm using big, medium, small, but just curved lines. So as you can see, one big curved line, medium to small. And then the middle one right here. So I started out with the big curvy line, and then at the 30 degree or 30% point, that's when I drew in the other curve, trying to draw my rhythm that way. And that's kind of what I got. So there is a rhythm here. Like if you kind of follow this little one, it creates that rhythm. And if you go to the top one right here, again, that one has a different type of rhythm. You see that? And for the bottom one, that's just, again, 50-50. It's like closer to unity. And you can see it's just kind of like a wavelength. And then let's look at this one, straight lines. Let's see. Okay, so in the straight lines, what I did here, yeah, just using straight lines, no curve. So I guess it's similar to the top one, right? But I guess it's in a sense trying to create some rhythm using just straight lines. So it's very similar to the top one. Yeah, that one's very similar to the top one. Maybe I could have done something a bit different there. But the bottom right here, this one's not necessarily broken into big, medium, small, or trying to draw 3 lines. It's just trying to create some sort of rhythm to the 70-30 rule, just using straight lines. And then the bottom one, it's rather than curved, you get a very similar feel to this, but it's just straight lines. So these are just some examples, and this is where it kind of gets interesting, because I added, you know, curve plus straight plus angles. And this is, to me, this is like the interesting stuff when it comes to just the design of what you could get. So as you see, big line right here, and then the medium line right here is curved, and it goes back to straight. So in this case, this line is straight, curve, straight, but I added one curved line right there, and that's kind of what I got. And right here, you know, I applied the 70-30 rule with just 2 lines, one straight and curved. So I did a straight, and then I did a curved line right there. So I'm not a vehicle designer, but I have I've never taken classes for that type of stuff, but I have like a good feeling that they probably use these types of methods to create angles and shapes on vehicles, because you kind of need this, you know, you need straight lines and you need curvy lines at times. And depending on how, like, what you're trying to create for your vehicle, you know, it could all be curvy. You know, I'm pretty sure like this is used in cars, stuff like this. But it's, you know, when you're making creatures and you're making, you know, techie stuff, I think this stuff comes in very handy as well. So right here on this bottom one, it's like I went with the curvy, and then I broke it like in the around the 70% point, and that's a straight. So I'm just playing around with curve and straight lines, applying big, medium, small, symmetry, and 70-30 rule to all of these. So this one's interesting down here too. You get the long straight line, symmetry. The next curved line is just symmetry. So it's kind of funny, the shape that I get right there. This one's really cool. I think this one's really awesome, because I go big this time. You notice like these aren't that prominent as a curve, these lines. They're all straight, but this one I just went for a big curvy, I guess you can say symmetrical. It's a symmetrical big curved line to straight to ends up being small. So I thought that was kind of an interesting look. But all of these have different kind of feels just by looking at the lines. And then at the bottom, again, it's just symmetrical. So that's the example I'm using for just lines. And for this next thing that I did right here, I just created simple shapes and I put them together, and I start applying some of these guides into these shapes, and it's all random. It's not for anything purposeful. So it's kind of interesting though, the shapes that you can kind of come up with when you apply these guides. You can see right here, and like I said, I didn't do this for all of the principles of design. This is just to kind of give you an idea, but I could show you some examples, but let me just go through these really quick. So I don't even know what this is, but as you see, overall, this is right here, this is a medium shape, these are small, and this is a larger area. And with taking this larger area right to the edge, right at this point where I broke it at 30, and you get kind of that interesting feel. And with this shape right here, this, I don't even know what to call this shape, but whatever it is, I kind of, it's rounded, but so that's kind of symmetrical right there. But right at the point right here, that's where I kind of turned it down, so it looks like a vent or of some sort. Just really funny objects or whatever these things are. Like I said, I was just messing around, but right here, this one too, large, medium, small, large, medium, small. So, but that's the basic idea of how I'm using these guides to help me make shapes. And also, when it comes to shapes, if you're gonna go with different shapes, I would say 3 is probably, in my opinion, the maximum where you have different shapes, because too much it can be random, and that's actually an element of design. It's variety, but like too much variety can kill other parts of the design, and unless that's like intentional, then that's okay. So yeah, but when it comes to the shapes themselves, this is kind of my belief. Like, if you're going to use different shapes, let the 2 bigger shapes have, let those 2 be complementary to each other in a way, and let the small one just be the accent. So it's almost like if you have 2 medium shapes that are completely different, you're going to have some conflict there, but I don't know if it's going to get kind of fall into more of the variety than the actual like conflict or contrast, which could be complementary to each other. So I would just be careful with that. I don't even know if it makes sense to you guys what I'm talking about, but in future videos, if there's a scenario where that starts to happen, I'll mention it, and then so you guys could probably grasp on it a little better. But so just for this segment, I just decided to do just a quick tutorial when it came to right here, like the lines, as I just did, and shapes, or form, I should say. But I can go deep in every single one. You can make a video hours long about every single one, but this, again, you're just getting the high level. Then I'll show you some examples of art and how some of these elements and principles kind of attribute to some of these. This fellow right here, as you see, there's definitely, in my head, there's definitely things that with every drawing that I draw that I feel like I could do better. But again, big, medium, small. There is two big shapes right here, which is the hammer, and then you have the character itself. But I feel like it's such a, that like I said, they're guides and not rules. And there's sometimes I think it's okay to just bend the rules. And for this instance, as long as I have the big, medium, small, you know, like in it, the object is so far away from the character itself. It almost feels like it starts to land into the balance, you know, the balance element of design. You know, the shifting of weight. And the way his posture is, you know, it can kind of gives you the sense that he's able to hold on to this weight. So that's just kind of one of the elements I sort of think about. I'm thinking about it now, but at the moment, because I've been doing this like for so long, and it's already almost second nature to me. But at times, not every drawing is a hit, you know. But there's always a reasoning behind, for the most part, on most of my drawings. There's some reasoning behind, you know, the composition or the design itself. And let's just go to some of these other examples that I have in art. And here's one of my older ones. I thought this one's kind of hilarious, I think. Yeah, this one kind of reminds me of a Doom character, but yeah, this one, you know, you see there's plenty of noise, and these are larger shapes, but you know, larger shapes, as I mentioned in the guide, you know, do you have the big areas of rest, and then the medium ones, you know, and then it goes down to small. But you see there's no real rest right here, but where there is rest is in this torso. It's not, I wouldn't even call this the larger area. This is more like a medium. But because all of these shapes right here are kind of connected with each other, it gives you kind of the sense that this is a bigger piece, right? And instead of this being clear, I kind of added it's contrast, you know, like the medium shape is now the quiet space, and everything else is the noise. So the rest area is the focal point in some regard with this character. So like knowing that and flipping it, that's, to me, that's this is done with intent, you know. And I think things are, when they're done with intent, they feel much better than, you know, sometimes and if you get happy accident, then that's great. But just understanding again these principles and elements, just so you're able to proceed confidently about choices, you know, it's a good thing. And you should remember or know them, and just try to forget them. And I feel like it did take me like a few years to try to forget these, because I used to draw obsessively like the same type of lines, and eventually I had to kind of grow out of it. But yeah, it is what it is. And here's one where I kind of did very recently, where, you know, I create a large area of rest comparison to the medium shapes right here, all the limbs right there. And, you know, these limbs serve as directional lines for the focal point area right here, which is, you know, these ribs that are coming out, kind of suggesting where to look at. Same with these ribs right here. They kind of conform these shapes, kind of this circle right here. And circles are great to create focal points right there. Yeah, and I mean, and as I mentioned, following, you know, the rule of thirds, focal point ends up being in that lower left corner area. So, you know, using all these guides to my advantage to create these creatures, you know. So just hiding the chances of making something appealing. So this is a very good example of that. Here's another drawing, pretty famous character in the Mortal Kombat realm, but again, this big, medium, small, right? So not necessarily big area of rest, but it's larger than the others. But what I feel this one has great is like the directional lines that aim towards the focal point. So, you know, one thing that I didn't mention as much, and honestly, I have many videos to go, and I can mention other kind of ideas behind design, but you know, the way, you know, the direction is used and how I put the character off center, so to create more interest. It's kind of like the rule of thirds, right? A little bit. So the focal point is his head, Goro's head, and by creating like the arms, you know, in different angles, you know, it creates more interest. And there's a little bit shift of balance right here as well when it comes to the composition. So again, I'm saying this like I'm articulating this design in words, but as I'm drawing, I don't really think about all this stuff I'm saying. I'm just drawing. I'm trying to create something that's appealing. So this is me trying to articulate this drawing, and it's just a drawing, to be honest. It's not. I'm making it probably sound cooler than it probably is, but I had fun doing it. That's kind of what's important. But nonetheless, you know, this is just, you guys, you know, it's useful to be aware of this stuff, because even though you might not think it, just having it in the back of your head can help you make decisions in your designs to make them more appealing, which that is one of the strongest reasons why to understand these things. So here's the next one. Again, this one, big, medium, small, but you get these different shapes, like I showed you in the shape example. Having shapes that sort of complement each other, and I always find that the rounder shapes are almost like those arch shapes, like if you remember as well, like the Leonardo da Vinci's the Annunciation, like that one, where the angel's kind of creating this arc shape to almost kind of capture the focal point, you know, like holding the whole focal point. And I think round shapes are very good at that. So that's kind of what this is right here. And obviously the focal point's right there, like the whole mouth area. So circles and round shapes are very good to encapsulate a focal point. And let's see what else we can look at. Okay, I have this one right here, and I thought this was a nice one to show contrast, you know, that element of contrast. And yeah, this is just a wild character I kind of had in mind of doing, and you see how it's almost symmetrical when you cut it down the middle. But there's still contrast when it comes to the value, where you have the legs are kind of highlighted more right here, and then this one, the mouth just takes most of the value, the dark area. So it's like a yin yang in a way. So that's something to kind of keep in mind as well, how you can use contrast to make an image appealing. And again, if you wanted to go deeper, you know, you do contrast and then you figure out a way to make it 70-30 or 60-40-10 or 60-30 for the golden ratio. If you figure that out, that's how to probably make a drawing even more appealing. So those are just ideas, you know, taking all of these elements and everything I showed you and applying the guides, you know, where you want them to go. If you want it more appealing or if you want it more boring, etc. So I'll show you one more. Okay, here's this next one. And for this one, there's a lot of things going on here. Big, medium, small. You know, where there's a large rest area right here, but there's also, you know, contrast and value, where, you know, that you have a significant amount of light and shadow. So if you wanted to play around with this too, you know, when it comes to light and shadow, you can make 70-30, or you know, big, medium, small. When it comes to 60, 30, 10, and you get these light hits right here as well, creating that that yin yang, you know. Draw a yin yang right here, like that. And when it comes to, you know, directional lines, you get these guys right here. I feel like for the limbs I could have done a bit different, maybe the opposite, to create some sort of you know, conflict between this and this limb. They're kind of the same, so I think that that's something I could have probably done better, maybe for next time. But you know, they all of these kind of areas sort of point, or directional lines point towards the focal point right here. So yeah, this is another good example. And again, you can do this with all the elements and the principles that I showed you. But these are just examples where you see it in my art. So let's move on to the next thing. Yeah, so and then for the last thing, what I wanted to do is just kind of start off with the demo. And yeah, and here I'll show you a video of this demo that I kind of started for the next video. But I'll just play the video, and I'll talk about it a little bit as it's kind of going along. But as you'll see in this drawing, because I've been doing this for quite a while now, like I'm very conscious of what I want the focal point to be, and how to direct the eye towards that focal point. So all of this, it's a formula. My designs are based off, you know, a structure and the formula, and it's all of this stuff that I'm showing you guys. And I try different things in my mind. You know, if one thing works or one thing doesn't work, I'll try another. And if I'm afraid like there's gonna be too much let's just say shadow in one area, then I'll figure out how to add contrast on the other area, you know. And if I think it's too even, then I apply the 70-30 rule. So it's those types of things, you know, all these guides that have helped me throughout the years to end up somewhere where I'm more satisfied than not. And yeah, for the most part, you know, it is work, and it takes a ton of practice to kind of make these guides, you know, second nature. So hopefully this kind of opens your eyes a little bit, if your eyes aren't open already, or if maybe they're not, but maybe you're just really good at drawing and you probably don't even need this stuff. But for me, it was like a requirement for myself to kind of learn different types of languages. But that being said, yeah, if you see at this drawing right here, how I'm creating this these gesture lines that are headed towards that focal point where I want it to be. And yeah, see how these lines kind of want them to go towards this direction, because that's the focal point of this creature. So that's it. I'll leave you guys in a bit of a cliffhanger. This was just to kind of show you the guides, and hopefully you got a little, not just some insight, but maybe you'll probably start looking at art at a different way, and hopefully this helps you out as well. You know, my goal is to share this stuff with you. I want art, you know, like 20 years from now, I'd love to see kind of geniuses when it comes to this type of stuff, and I'd love to kind of feel like I'm being blown away by the next generation's art. So this is me kind of sharing my knowledge, and there's definitely more to come in future videos. I will be kind of referring this one at times when it comes to certain design points or ideas. But there's also other stuff that I didn't really cover for this one. This is just like a high level high level, I don't know what to call it, tutorial or demonstration. But yeah, tune in. On the next one, I think I will go into some details with this character, the one I'm drawing at the moment. I will go into some details about the choices that I'm making here. And again, it's all for this is just to kind of ingrain it into your head, like all these ideas and philosophies. So when it comes down to you guys doing your artwork, you know, it's kind of there, and you'll be able to make decisions that can potentially enhance the appeal of your drawing or art. So yeah, again, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and tune in for more. This one will be the next one, and take care. Have a good one.